Me, but most leather comes from cows. Her, but it's vegan, right? What's the dumbest reply to a serious question you've heard? It was actually me who said the dumb reply. This was when I was younger, just by the way. Texted to me by a friend, "Can I take a rain check?" A few minutes later, I text back. "Nope, no rain." I had literally checked the weather for the day. I was a socially awkward idiot, so. Yeah. In physics there's something called the right-hand rule which helps you find the direction of force given the direction of the magnetic and electric fields. It's a little hard to explain how exactly, but you literally use your right hand as a model. My professor asked me in front of the class what the first thing you needed to identify in order to use the rule was. I panicked, and answered your right hand. I was on a job and we needed to have a structural engineer to come in and look at one of the floors to make sure it was stable enough. So we asked the owner's daughter, who was supposedly a business major who was gonna take over her dad's company, if she had a contact number for the structural engineer her dad normally dealt with when having his buildings renovated. She looks at the three of us, me, my assistant superintendent and project manager, and goes, "Oh yeah. But he's busy working on my car at the moment." All three of us. What? Her, "Yeah, he's working on my engine in my car. Why do you guys need him? Engineers work on engines, not buildings." WTF. I got a former friend a job at my workplace. She was seriously stressing, talking about how if she doesn't find a job, her ex might win the custody case, and take the kids, and she wasn't finding anything. So, I talked to my boss and got her position doing what I do. 1 week later she was supposed to go on her first call. She overslept by 4 hours and ended up missing the job. I called her as I was leaving to do the job she missed. I asked, "So, are you going to talk to our boss and see if he'll give you another chance?" She straight up went, "I don't think so." Oh well, wasn't meant to be. Girl, what? Side note, I work in the funeral business. The job was taking a body down to get an autopsy. The place where this particular person was getting one was over 2 hours away. We're supposed to be there at a certain time, otherwise, we spend all day there. In law school we had a free clinic for qualifying and lower income people to come in. We couldn't technically advise them because we weren't barred yet, but we could guide and try to help them through some complex issues they might not have a handle on. One guy came in and wasn't even my case but being done by a classmate next to me during a session. The man, dead-faced and scared, would filing for bankruptcy ruin my life? Girl, flustered how to answer, well, it looks like your life is already pretty bad. Question, recent polls have shown 1/5 of Americans can't locate the US on a world map. Why do you think this is? Answer, I personally believe that US Americans are unable to do so because, some people out there in our nation don't have maps and, I believe that our education like such as in South Africa and, Iraq, everywhere like such as, and, I believe that they should, our education over here in the US should help the US, should help South Africa and should help Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future. For our children. At the start of 2020, a volcano erupted in Batangas, a province in the Philippines. Affected my hometown which fucking sucked. What does our president suggest doing against the eruption? Give supplies? Help in the evacuation of the people stuck there? Provide relief and support? No. Do you want to know the answer? His words, not mine, I will urinate on the volcano. Good job, President. I was a nanny when I was in college for this very bizarre family who always pretended like I wasn't there. I was walking down the street with the mother and her 2 kids. It was February and the sun glare was really bad, so naturally, I was wearing sunglasses. One of the kids, about 4, asked his mother why I was wearing sunglasses in winter, and the mother responds, well, some people are not that smart and they just want to look cool. Please note, both parents were professors at an Ivy League college. In school, a physics teacher had asked one of my fellow students, who was holding a presentation on nuclear energy, what is the Hadron Collider in Switzerland used for? The response was so outrageously stupid, I was dumbfounded and cannot believe this happened to this day. She also wasn't joking. Nobody jokes with this teacher because no one had ever seen him laugh and he was a douche. To create a second sun. My friend was a second-year med student and she was walking through the main floor of our hospital in scrubs. Stopped by a passerby asking for directions, she was asked, "Hey, where's the PET CT?" She said, I think there's one in the nearby mall." The man looked at her confused and was like, "The PET CT is in the mall?" She replies, "Yeah, like the second floor I think. It's not called Pet City though, it called the Pet World, I think." Do you think I am looking for a pet store? 2 years of medical education and common sense returned to her at that moment and said, "Oh my God, no, you mean the scan. It's down that hall on the right, I'm so sorry." He shook his head walking away and we heard him say, "I wish I was looking for a fucking pet store." We were discussing Antarctica and some guy casually said, stone cold face, "You don't actually believe Antarctica is a real place, right?" "Doctor, are you vaccinating your son about 1 year, according to the chart I gave you?" "Mom, better than that. I am breastfeeding him. This was in India last year. Didn't know this was happening in India too." Traveling in the car down a street looking for a particular shop. Question, so which shop is it? Answer, the one by the tree. The road is lined with trees. In a high school world history class. Teacher, all right everyone, we will be covering the Reformation period. Who knows why Martin Luther was significant? Student, blurting out without raising hand, Martin Luther? Isn't that the guy who freed all the slaves? This one holds a special place for me because it is multiple layers of wrong. Was in college and went to the calculus study hall to see if I could learn something. One of the problems was something like a man throws a ball on the moon at a speed of 30 miles per hour at an angle of degrees. How long before the ball comes down? The response from the TA, PhD candidate in math, "That's a stupid question, everyone knows there's no gravity on the moon." I never went back. One time my friends and I were hanging out in his apartment. All of a sudden I hear a whoosh and look over at my friend and his hair is on fire. We get it out quickly and I asked him what the hell just happened. He told me, "I was trying to listen to the sound the lighter made when I flicked it." Works in IT, during a meeting at work. Project manager, "Okay, so how should we name this tension?" Silence. Random guy in the back, "Susan." In my high school physics class the teacher asked what was the unit for time. This girl screamed kilograms. After that you could see the teacher lost hope on all of us. I used to work a video rental store that has since closed down. The first week I worked there, a person asked in store, mind you, if we rented out movies. I didn't know what to do, other than just with a stone faced and said yes, of course, we do. I wasn't sure if they were serious or not. Astronomer here. Maybe not quite what Op had in mind, but it is depressing how many people will ask me a serious question about, say, black holes, head the explanation, and then dismiss it with a "yeah, but I don't believe in relativity" or whatever theory they dislike. Like, okay? I guess you can believe in whatever you want, but the universe isn't going to conform to that, is how it works. And it goes without saying that these people have very rarely taken an actual physics class and understand what they're dismissing. They've just read some articles online and think they're now experts. When I was a senior in high school I was in the National Honor Society, and I used to be the lab assistant for Chemistry A and help grade tests. We were going over elements and compounds, and the directions asked the student to clarify if the subject was an element or a compound. The teacher threw in pizza as a gimme question, and this guy literally wrote element as his answer. Even worse, he was irate when we marked it incorrect. He was the only one in all 3 classes to get that question wrong. Full disclosure, I was the idiot in this conversation, but in my early 20s, I was at a friend's small gathering. I was chatting with my friend and some dude I had never met before. Asked where he grew up, and he said DC, to which I replied, "Oh, I didn't realize people actually lived there." I kind of knew it was stupid as it was coming out of my mouth. But I also kind of thought that was a district like a financial district and people went there for work but lived just outside of it. The worst part was that even though I was fresh out of college, I was working in a local political office, and these were folks from state legislative offices, so I should have known better. They laughed at me for a while. While watching Frozen with a group of friends, my brother's girlfriend, 30 minutes in, looks confused and upset and looks me in my eyes and asks if their parents died. Are they still sisters? She had been thinking about it for 30 minutes. I had to console her and let her know that if her parents died, her sister would still be her sister. Teacher in high school asked the class if anyone knew how many feet there were in a mile. Very seriously, a student answered, nobody knows, that it's impossible, everyone has different sized feet. It was biology and the teacher called this guy, I'll call him Tim, to the board to answer a couple questions for a grade. I'll skip to the point. She asked him how did a horse adapt to his living conditions? He answered with, long nose, strong legs, wings, and claws. Don't know if he was thinking about a griffin or a Pegasus, but it was very funny. I saw a video of a guy asking people what's the hardest thing you've had to say in your life? Most people replied with sad things, telling their kids that their dog passed, had to divorce, a relative passed, etc. But one guy comes in and says the time he had to say Worcestershire sauce. Sure, it was funny, cause he kept on saying it wrong since it was the hardest thing for him to say, but it was such a dumb answer. But still super funny. I guess this probably doesn't count as it's more of a dumb question. At work one day I was given a gift from a coworker. It was a bracelet with silver beads. The beads signify the dots and dashes for Morse code. In Morse code, the bracelet design spelled out fuck you. Another girl that we worked with asked me with a straight face, Morse code is the same thing as sign language, right? Another coworker who wasn't exactly bright chimed in and said yes, that's the exact same thing with the hand signals. I had to leave the room. From a beauty pageant? Sadly I haven't been able to find it. Q. What are your opinions on affirmative action? A. Well, I believe we should be affirmative in all our actions. That's a question that's unfair to ask of smart people. Back in the day when fax machines were the pinnacle of office technology, I had a coworker who was standing next to the fax looking distressed. I asked them what the problem was. They responded that they couldn't make a copy of the document because the copier was broken. I said, why do you need to make a copy? They replied, if this is fax then I won't have a copy, it will get transferred through the fax. They actually thought the fax machine was like a transporter in Star Trek. Years ago, I was an intern at an insurance agency. One of their most successful agents passed away, but his wife, 50s, glamorous looking lady, was helped through testing so that one of the other agents could work on her husband's portfolio. But she was licensed. So one night at a company dinner party, I was serving drinks, I heard someone ask her, so, what is your opinion on mutual funds? She paused for a moment, looked at him funny, and said, everyone should enjoy mutual fun. I used to work as a manager and coach. I was hiring for a seasonal sales position, and this girl comes in for an interview looking pretty well dressed and eloquent. Halfway into the interview, I ask her what her hobbies are and what she likes to do with her time off. Turned out she was a vegan who mentors new vegans. I asked her if she would be comfortable handling leather products. Her, of course, as long as it doesn't come from animals I'm totally fine. Me, but most leather comes from cows. Her, but it's vegan, right? Apparently, she never knew that you could dye leather all colors. She thought cow leather equals white and black. She was carrying a Coach bag. Due to Canada being a bilingual country, all official correspondence needs to be released in both English and French. To this effect, the government typically retains an agency to do most, if not all of its translation work. Of course, there are countless requests to process, and so getting a completed translation typically takes a few days. So I gave the task of translating a document to my assistant to process. Walked her through the typical procedure of how to request a translation, etc. 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 I left her alone with it and went back to work. Towards the end of the day, she comes to inform me that the translation is finished. I was stunned. The agency has never returned documents to me so quickly. Did she have the magic touch? A way with words? Whatever it was, I was pleased, that is, until I read the document. I'm not fluent in French, but I knew enough to get by. But this was most definitely improperly translated. So I asked her how she got the translation. Oh, well, the document seemed straightforward enough, so I just put it into an online translator. I studied French in high school and it seems mostly correct. Google Translate. She used fucking Google Translate. She didn't last very long. She got promoted to another department. Me, musing out loud, my asthma hasn't been an issue for months now. Why is it acting up all of a sudden? My mother, unburdened by reason, you should get a breast reduction. It will help with your breathing. My boss told me we needed to gather up all the fire extinguishers at work so security could send them out for their annual testing. What happens if there's a fire while all the extinguishers are gone? We shouldn't have any fires. When I was in middle school, our gifted class took a field trip to JP Morgan to learn about the stock market. We were from a small town, 2,000 people, and the trip was to St. Louis, so most of us weren't used to big, fancy buildings. At the time, Missouri was in a frenzy over the new Madrid fault because some psychic had predicted a major quake coming from it that year. We even began practicing earthquake drills in school. When we walked into the tall, all-glass lobby, my first thought was, this place is a death trap. So when our tour guide, probably an intern in her early 20s, opened the tour up to questions, I asked, "What is the building's plan for if an earthquake hit?" She replied, completely serious, with, "Well, if an earthquake was coming, I'm sure the sky would be dark and ominous, so we would all have time to evacuate." And that was the day I learned that just being an adult and working in a big fancy building doesn't automatically mean you're intelligent. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.